particularly yesterday, and I've seen you out the front meeting with students who were wearing masks in protest. And there are some here, you can see some masks out there now. How many people do you think aren't here because of a threat that they might lose a scholarship?
I was informed a few did withdraw because of the intimidation and because we had cases or instances where student scholarship were withdrawn in the UK. So there is real fear, particularly among students with poor family background. That is why I believe this is an unfortunate event, decision by the Malaysian authorities. But we have seen this pattern going on for some time in the United States, in the UK. It's an interesting episode was when I was teaching at Georgetown University, the circular went even to my student. So the student under me was told not to meet Anwar. This is really pathetic. I mean, this is complete ignorance. But there's a streak of authoritarianism that we must speak up. I mean, the students must have the courage to come in big numbers and challenge this decision by the authorities. And of course, and I mentioned to Premier Waleed Aly, and of course Nick Xenophon here has a great passion for these issues, to say that Australia also should speak up, not to be involved in the internal politics of Malaysia, but to remain consistent on the issue of freedom of human rights in Australia. I'm not talking about in Malaysia. Students here should not be intimidated.
What did you make of the Australian government's response to it? What would you have liked their response to have been?
Well, international diplomacy is getting more complex because probably we all promote bilateral trade, cross-border investments. Sometimes trade and investment override the issue of freedom and human rights, and this is, of course, disconcerting. I promote strongly, as I mentioned, and thank the Premier here, because we want more students to come, have the exposure. We have great institutions of learning here. We want cross-border investments, but we should not sacrifice the ideals of humanity. We should not, the issue of human dignity. What's freedom was about? Human rights. They're not statistics and numbers, but people's well-being. Why are we in politics in the first place? Because we want to talk about governance, good governance, ideals. And now where we are in power, the only raison d'etre or basis is just money and business. And this makes it difficult for me to understand. After all, I have great admiration for the Australian system because it promotes democracy and freedom. You are prepared to send troops to Iraq in the so-called the reasons, of course, for freedom. But you are blinded to the excesses within your shores. And this is the ambivalence, if not hypocrisy, in diplomatic relations, in foreign policy that need to be corrected.
I have a feeling there's some code in there somewhere. Just to be clear on it, though, do you think that the Australian government's response sacrificed human rights in some way?
Yes, I think they should at least, even in the most polite language, just say, look, our students, those studying in Australia, should not be intimidated, period. I mean, you can couch in the most diplomatic term, but the failure to address this is, of course, to me, is totally unacceptable. I mean, you say, no, we can't interfere. Then why talk about Aung San Suu Kyi? Why send troops to Iraq? Why deplore the work of the Taliban? Let it be. You take a position because we protect human dignity, human rights, because we have a passion for justice. What Tocqueville talks about in the Democracy in America as habits of the heart. And this is the language or discourse that those who cherish freedom and democracy value. And of course, I would expect the Australian authorities to respect that.
De Tocqueville also talks about the possibility of democracy being the tyranny of the majority. which raises some interesting questions about minorities, which I want to get your thoughts on soon. But I want to finish with this line of thinking about students, because you talk to a lot of students. We heard you were speaking to about 150 last night. If I had to guess, I would say the Malaysian students are probably broadly sympathetic with your political position, and a lot of your coalition's support electorally comes from educated Malaysians in city sort of areas. When you meet with them, and no one else is watching, what do you tell them, and what do they tell you?
Well, in the engagement, in the dialogue, they tell me a lot, the expectations, the criticisms, the aspirations, and sometimes the anger and the bitterness, feeling either intimidated or discriminated against. And I think, and I told them even yesterday, I reiterated the same point, that I do believe in these ideals, but the 6 years of solitary confinement gave me a stronger passion on the meaning of freedom. It's not statistics, 20% abject poverty, or 6 people detained without trial. No. I want to feel for the 6, not the statistics. So when you engage with them, I mean, I'm of course very much encouraged, because not only the elections, Waleed, but in terms of our general level of support, is among the young, more so educated, urban, suburban. We have some problems in trying to penetrate the rural heartland, because the media is not free. I happen to be the opposition leader in Malaysia, but I don't have 1 minute of airtime. I can't enter any campus in Malaysia. I used to teach in Georgetown, or you're invited for lectures at Oxford or Stanford, but the standard of universities in Malaysia is just too high that I'm not qualified to enter.